Product teams apparently waste a bunch of their time doing things that don't really help get to the heart of product innovation. And we need to kind of turn the script on that so that we can be more productive with our innovation efforts. And there's some AI tools to help us get there for sure. In this discussion, you're going to learn how companies like Boeing, Comcast, and others are really accomplishing this. And we're going to talk about 4 specific approaches for unleashing AI for product innovation, freeing up some of the time on documentation and other things that we do. And to help us with that is our guest, Dr. Katie Trauth Taylor. She is the CEO and co-founder of Narratize AI. Narratize, I say that right?
Perfect. Yes,
Okay.
you got it.
And she helps R&D teams transform what they're doing, their scattered knowledge really into competitive advantage. She has worked with NASA, Boeing, and other Fortune 500 companies to cut documentation time and speed products to market. Katie discovered that innovators are spending too much of their time just trying to communicate their ideas, and she built an AI platform to improve this. She holds a PhD from Purdue University. I happen to teach in their graduate online program at Purdue, and has published peer-reviewed research on innovation storytelling that's reshaping how teams work.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas for product mastery. You'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
Very excited to be talking, and we are talking in person at a conference that we're both attending this week.
We are. And speaking of in person, you were so kind to bring me a hot tea because my voice is a little froggy today.
You lost your
Filled
voice
with
yesterday.
honey. Yes, yes.
I'm glad it worked out.
I can't believe you did that. That was so kind. Thank you.
We try to make sure things work out well. So,
Perfect.
yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Yes. But we're here in Chicago,
Yep.
PDMA Ignite Summit. And fun fact, I drove past Purdue on my way here today.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. I went right past West Lafayette. I was very tempted to go and walk the campus one more time, but I had to hurry here. So
Well, I don't know. Once I've gone back to campus some, but it's like, it's in the past.
it's
okay.
true. Yeah. I felt okay. Just following on, continuing along. But
Very good. So, and we are at this conference, the Ignite Innovation Conference by PDMA, the Product Development and Management Association. They are a worldwide organization of innovators, and these innovators are amazing. And frankly, this association has helped a lot of people like myself become more knowledgeable about innovation. They have members across the world that are really involved in well-recognized companies leading innovation for them. And in part, that's because of the great resources this organization provides us to learn more about product innovation and product management. Association has been around since 1976. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary next year, and they keep
Amazing.
doing research and producing great knowledge for us. It is a volunteer-led organization. I've contributed now for about 2 decades almost, including being a co-author on the most recent version of the PDMA Body of Knowledge for Product Innovation. If you want to find out about the resources they have available and look into becoming a member, simply go to pdma.org. Okay, Katie, AI things. So you did some research in this area to find out about product innovation, and that apparently we spend our time not doing things that are really super productive to actually the end result, which is getting a product to market, helping customers, creating value for customers. What are the tasks that are kind of eating up our time in there?
yeah, great
that
question.
maybe we can use AI or some other tools to help us with?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, right, we know that the ultimate success driver that we're all working towards is getting superior products to market faster than our competitors, and for those products to work well and to have traction. And yet, the things that are slowing down our speed, which is one of the key metrics that most product teams are held towards, R&D teams are held towards, really surprisingly, knowledge lookup, documentation practices, missing information or duplicate efforts. These things, if they resonate with you, Chad, I'd love to hear more about your point of view. I've spent my entire career coming up in product innovation inside of multiple industries, from high tech, a lot of medical tech companies in Silicon Valley, all the way through to, like you said, Boeing, to Hershey, to some amazing, massive innovative organizations. And a few years ago, I had this amazing opportunity to sit down with about 100 different SVPs of R&D and product development. and some chief innovation officers too as part of that. And we conducted studies, mixed method studies, and we found teams are spending 70% of their time on documentation. So on communicating, on reporting, on trying to explain lab results to other people, on trying to do documentation that supports project handoffs or compliance reports, et cetera. And that's a substantial amount of our time.
It is. I saw that number in the description of your session. I was going to ask you about it because I didn't quite actually believe it. I'm like, really? Are we spending that much time on that activity?
Right, on the
Indeed,
communication. Yeah.
on all the communication aspect.
It's about 30% information lookup, trying to find the right information or find the right sources to inform the work we're doing. And then another 40% or so actually creating communications or spending time live in communications with our colleagues. And so it's a lot of time. Now, the process of post-meeting, documenting, it's
Right.
very variable. And I sort of hear two dynamics there. Either a team is producing a substantial amount of documentation for the legacy of all of their knowledge, and that's fantastic, but it's really slowing them down because those processes are typically very manual and they have to be deeply accurate. Alternatively, I hear teams where we're moving so fast we just don't have time to document at all.
Right.
And so those are kind of the two extremes, I think, that are pretty common
Yeah.
in product teams.
And I expect there's some cultural issues too. I know in teams where we feel like there's been miscommunications, tensions, problems, we're documenting more basically to CYA, right? And not because it might be adding value, but
Yeah.
because we're worried about something coming up.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. And the more regulated the industry is or the domain that you're working in, obviously that demands more documentation no matter the culture.
Sure, yeah.
And so, yeah. So the 70% is an average and it's taking into account communications time, documentation time, knowledge lookup, all of these acts that ultimately can slow down the innovation process.
Yep.
And so got really hyper-focused on this problem and 5 years ago concepted ways to solve it. At the time, OpenAI was sort of a black box skyscraper in the middle of San Francisco. Nobody knew, certainly not our parents or neighbors knew what on earth they were doing. But at that time, we were tapped and we became one of OpenAI's first 7 developer ambassadors.
Oh, wow.
And it's partly because we had this expertise in product innovation, as well as PhDs in predictive language modeling and narrative science. And so it was just the right combination of factors at the right moment to say, we're going to utilize large language model technologies to transform how product teams work, to transform how documentation happens, try to augment or automate aspects of that documentation.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of the origin story of Narratize. We were working with, I think it was GPT-2 at the time, prior to ChatGPT's launch. And that all is the early origin of the founding of Narratize.
Kind of fun to be on kind of the ground, the start of all that.
Wild.
And see how that evolves.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The research you described earlier, right? 100 case studies in essence, right?
Yeah,
Looking to
that's right.
But was this part of your PhD research or someone else's, or?
No, my PhD was long
Because we
gone by
don't
then.
usually
Yeah.
we don't often
Right?
dive into that
In
level.
industry.
Yeah.
So I've had the joy of collaborating within organizations like PDMA and the Innovation Research Interchange, Innovators, et cetera, different international organizations. And through IRI, did some collaborative research studies. The first one I ever did was focused on brilliant failures, which I think you would have loved considering some of your conversations around this topic. It focused on studying what's the difference between an epic catastrophic failure inside of an innovation team and a brilliant failure, because you have to fail. You will fail. And the faster
You have to learn.
You have to learn, exactly. Failure equaling spending little money while learning as much as possible. That's a brilliant failure. Spending a lot of money and not learning anything, we ended up being able to categorize that as an epic failure.
failure, okay.
Yeah, published some information on that. The second study was on innovation storytelling, and that's when I had that privilege of getting to sit down and capture that process. It was also that at the time I was running my first company, and that company was focused on supporting product teams with getting to the right communications, the right processes for documentation, and ultimately the right innovation stories to help them make portfolio decisions. A lot of ideas will die at the technical review when business leaders are asked, and marketing leaders, depending on the industry, are the gatekeepers.
Right.
Us as technologists, we love to come in and show the data and show the specs and show this amazing technical feat that we
It
can
doesn't tell the
overcome.
story.
Exactly.
Right? It's data.
Exactly. Yeah.
Data's dry and boring. We have to do something with it.
It is, and we have to have it, and evidence is crucial, and we should never fluff it. But there's also an art and a science, I should say, to getting to the right, we call it narrative algorithm. And that sounds pretty nerdy, but that's the foundation of leveraging AI to help create documentation as you start to pattern qualitatively the algorithm at an algorithmic level what makes an innovation story successful or ineffective, depending on the stage that you're in the process or the type of innovation of the industry. So we just spent years documenting all of that and then essentially tuning Narratize to reflect it.
Okay. So one place this would come up is I've been working with the customers. This new insight has uncovered itself because of that. And I'm trying to get attention of senior leadership to let me take action on this, let the team take action on this, right?
Definitely.
And so I may have data to show. I might not handle that very well. No one cares about this problem because it doesn't sound like it's well aligned or it's interesting or
Yes.
so Narratize and your background is helping to craft this story.
It is.
And I've, as listeners that know, I've talked about the importance of storytelling
Yes.
enormously. It's not like storytelling like we're writing a book to our kids or something, right?
No, it's not about fireside chats,
Yeah,
really.
right. It's about to demonstrate that this is important. There's an opportunity here. There's a problem to be solved, and we can create value for a customer or solve something internally and make things better, right?
That's right.
And we're trying to get people to understand why it's important.
Exactly. It's what we found is essentially 5 drivers, 5 conditions that need to be met in order for an innovation to be passed along to the next stage. And I'm not talking about just the quality of the idea and the feasibility of it and the resources to back it. Those are separate qualifiers when we're looking at the gates of the innovation process. But when you just look at the communication and the way it's story told, 5 drivers, again, conditions that have to be met: empathy, engagement, alignment, which you already said, evidence, and impact. We can get so hyper focused on saying, here's the gadget, here's the configuration, here's the CAD. And instead, if you're able to bring those things to light to the extent that particular audience needs you to give them that information, then that's when it gets to be successful. So if you're speaking to finance, not the best idea to sit there with bullet points and talk through all the specs. Of course, if you're talking to your engineering colleagues and leadership, that's crucial. But every time, if you're able to weave in those elements and make sure that you're speaking to your point, to the impact, that you're acknowledging whether it aligns or misaligns with the company's roadmap. If it misaligns, there's certain narrative arcs you can try to help bridge that gap and to make the case anyways, or to argue against it. A lot of being an innovator, it's about separating, as painful and impossible as this feels sometimes, it's about separating our personal desires or our personal portfolio wishes or what we contributed to, separating ourselves from that and recognizing we're members of a team, we're members of a whole. If my idea can become our idea, we'll make a better choice towards the right roadmap or portfolio decisions.
Right. The reality is, frankly, my idea usually stinks in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. We need it. Innovation is a team activity. We need other people to look at this from the perspectives, bringing other domain knowledge and make things better.
I love that you said that. I think it's one of the hardest things, especially for the technologist in the room, to become a master at. But the faster you can recognize the reason why you're spending months alone trying to get buy-in for your idea is because you haven't had enough engagement and collaboration for it to be placed within the ecosystem of the portfolio decision makers' points of view. And the more that you can cross-pollinate and get buy-in at the micro scale with champions and influencers who are from operations or from the manufacturing scale-up side or from marketing, the more you're going to be able to position yourself for success.
Right. Yeah, sometimes I'm asked as a newer product manager, how do you start building that influence in your organization? And I recommend you need to be just having lunch with people.
Yes.
And not lunch just with people inside your area, right? But across the organization, because it's a very cross-functional job and you've got to build those relationships and just be curious about what they're doing. Most people are glad to talk about what they do. And that's a great way to have an easy conversation over lunch to just ask people, tell me more about what your job is like.
I love that so much. I think product is probably, to your point, the most cross-functional position out there. And as more and more organizations shift from a siloed structure around or innovation and into cross-functional innovation teams, that becomes even more crucial. The product leader, the product manager, the portfolio managers, if they're not seeing every person and every function's role in the process and able to pull people in to build consensus, it's right. I'm sure you have a million stories about the times where that succeeds or fails because of great collaboration or sort of siloed.
Right, right. Yeah, and you talk about the impact and knowing who your audience is, and you probably know of or know Nancy Duarte, who's
Of course, yes, yeah, yeah.
and I remember when she was on last talking about this topic of data doesn't tell a story, right? And what stuck with me was if you're talking to an executive, you need to frame things in terms of money, revenue, risk, or market, because those are the three things that are important, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, talking to the CFO, right? What you have to think about how you're framing the story for the audience to have any impact to them.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. One thing that we did, you might like, we mapped algorithms around the risk aversiveness or the risk tolerance within the innovation culture of different industries or different individual companies. And what we found was there's a way to essentially recognize how risk tolerant or risk averse your culture is, and then adapt your storytelling approach to it. So, for instance, if you're in a very risk averse culture, to your point, it's best to hit it head on. It's best to acknowledge upfront the problems and the barriers and the things that could go terribly wrong. If you're in a very risk tolerant culture, like Amazon, for instance, their CEO coming out every year saying, "We failed more, great, let's keep failing more," aka learning more.
Right.
And that extremely risk tolerant culture, you would lean more on rhetoric around opportunity than you would around risk. And that's good or bad, and also always an opportunity to challenge if your culture is self-limiting by always looking at risk. But it is just a sort of fact of how our human brains work
Right.
in rhetoric.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated with how do we figure this out, right?
Yeah.
If your experience is primarily with R&D teams, price, some
Yes,
of
yeah.
the product teams too,
Yes.
with innovation. But if I'm sitting in my R&D department, I wouldn't be surprised that I don't have a good handle, frankly, on the culture of the organization, right, as a whole. And I need to be carrying my story about some things that we're finding, whether it's a product team or R&D, doesn't matter, to others in the organization that I probably don't have a strong handle on what's important to them as well, right? So have you come up with tools to help with this, to do some?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we set out to solve this problem of documentation and communications inside of the R&D and product dev process, we really focused on helping to augment or automate the documentation itself. So we started there.
Yeah.
And because we were working with large language models before everyone thought of them as chatbots, we never, in the early days of the first prototypes of Narratize, we never built them as a chatbot. And so even today, Narratize, of course, has generative chat capabilities, but it still has a ton of workflows tuned to a typical gated or agile or jobs to be done innovation process that the AI is tuned to just ask you the right questions depending on your role and depending on the phase that particular innovation is in. It asks questions of you, it pulls your insights, it sources insights that are securely and privately organized based on the historical knowledge in your company, and then it automatically generates the PRD or the R&D presentation or the FMEA analysis. And so it's tuned to not require you to have to chat it to get to that output. And the brilliance of that is the best asset that you have in your company is the tribal knowledge that's getting stored inside of all of our colleagues' heads.
Right.
That's also the biggest and scariest pain point, right?
It is.
When that legacy and that luminary leaves, the library burns.
Yeah, and it's also challenging getting into that environment, right? I
Yeah.
just talked to someone else this morning that shared for their organization, you're considered a newbie until 5 years.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, of course.
Because there's so much to learn.
Yes,
Right? So
yes.
we need some way of passing on knowledge.
Yes.
This whole knowledge management thing that's been written up for a few decades.
Totally.
We haven't really figured it out, but it sounds like we're getting tools to get us closer, right?
So I get goosebumps sharing with you what we've unearthed at Narratize, at least early days, right? Automating documentation. what we discovered was a typical AI chatbot, people are asking it the same things. If you and I were to log in and our boss would to say, hey, Chad, I need that PRD by close of business.
Right.
We may be able to chat with a chatbot to get to a draft. We are both going to be telling that chatbot what to do. We're giving it instructions. The information we're sharing with it isn't that interesting, actually. It's probably about the same between the two of us. But if that interaction is actually designed to pull the right information from you or from me uniquely, store it as knowledge securely, privately, and make it attributable to you and attributable to me, then you're actually capturing your people's tribal knowledge for the first time.
Right.
And so early days of Narratize, right, it was all about documentation. All of that still exists today, and it's one of the most loved parts of the platform by R&D and product teams is they go in, get their documentation done in 15 minutes between phone call or between meetings, right? But this year we just launched a new capability. It's a first of its kind architecture, essentially an innovation orchestration layer technology. We call it product knowledge hubs. And now our customers are creating hubs for every core product in their portfolio and every new product innovation that's in their development pipeline and even their early stage concepts. They invite the right team members to those hubs, typically cross-functional team members. So inside these hubs, we see stakeholders, obviously all the R&D and the product dev folks and the new product intro folks, but we also see legal, market intelligence, marketing stakeholders inside these hubs too. And it enables a team to rapidly ingest all of the knowledge and information related to that initiative. It allows the AI to let me ping you for your insights about that project and vice versa. It helps automate our documentation. Together, we can chat with that information. And so if you're new to the project, let's say you're only 3 months into the company, you could log into that hub and ask, well, what's the origin behind this project? And how long have we been developing it? And what have been the lessons learned along the way? It'll help automate the after action reports so that people are sharing that knowledge. Even things like it's actually tuned to recognize when we need to ask for the failure story or the lessons learned story, the success story. And then it helps give the executive leader visibility across the portfolio. Because if you think all these teams are interacting together inside of their hubs, you might be on 12 hubs, depending on however many products you're actively helping develop at a given time. Your SVP then can see across that portfolio. And so the way to unlock innovation intelligence, it's about to completely transform. And I just get goosebumps thinking how I've had this amazing front row seat to see how amazing, innovative enterprises.
To pre-release. What you guys have been developing there.
These years are far more exciting. These months I'm in now are far more exciting, even than that, because I knew something special was happening then, but this is actually getting to see it create business outcomes and change product teams' lives, which is why we do this, right? It's to get these solutions to market faster because society needs them, business needs them, and that's why all of us go to work in the morning, right? Because we're passionate about doing that work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And help us focus on what really gets to that end point.
Yes.
As quickly as possible.
Instead of just reporting.
The timelines are decreasing so radically.
Really,
right.
So 46% faster through stages of their product lifecycle. That's the benchmark we're measuring across our enterprise customers right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's half the time.
I suspect leaning into, as much as I love the innovation perspective, what this might do for the knowledge management picture in some organizations, and that challenge of, well, how do we get new people up to speed?
Yeah.
How do we capture all the knowledge across the often silos of the organization and make that available to people?
Yeah.
And having this integrated collection of information that maybe a smart AI agent that's trained on the company and what we do is even going to help offer that when we ask a certain question, but something that we should be aware of.
Exactly, yes.
That's going to speed things dramatically.
Yeah, it's really, you're right. At the end of the day, our pace it will be dependent on our ability to share accurate knowledge, our ability to capture the insights of our luminaries. We won't be able, at some point, we'll hit sort of what's that metaphor people say when you, like a plateau or like a point of no return? There's an official business word.
Yeah, you plateau out at
Right.
times.
You're going to plateau if you don't incorporate knowledge management into your use of AI and product dev. Then you'll maybe get faster to a document or faster to a formulation, but you won't you won't actually transform your workplace and transform it for the next generation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see increasing confidence, right? That we now have a larger collection of information of what has worked, what we have done, and the outside factors and everything. Our confidence should go up. So, really good discussion about the where we're wasting time, how we can improve this, getting really excited about how this is going to help organizations improve in a number of ways, I think probably beyond just innovation. But your session, which is coming up, we're at the start of the conference here, is also addressing 4 practices for helping product teams, R&D teams embrace AI in their innovation projects. We may have hit on aspects of that, but can we clarify what those 4 practices are?
Yeah, definitely. So let me break them down. This is what my talk will be about tomorrow, which will be, I can't wait. It's going to be a great dialogue. The first best practice that product teams can be approaching AI with first is recognize that this is a knowledge capture capability. It's not just a question and answer capability. So start breaking. I think number one is think outside the chatbot. Okay, think outside the chatbot. Think, how might AI prompt me for my insights, prompt my superiors, prompt new people, prompt cross-functional team members, prompt customers? How can we leverage this technology to capture intelligence and effectively manage it so that it is surfaced at the right time for us in the future? That's huge. And especially, there's a data point I recently read. So by the end of 2025, the end of this year, 22% of the manufacturing workforce is supposed to retire. That's 1/5 of our workforce.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And we can leave the report that this finding came out in the show notes.
Sure.
But oh my gosh, that's 2 or 3 million people
Right.
in the US who the library will burn when they walk out the door, especially in industries where they worked there for 30 years,
Right.
sat with that machine
Right.
for that long. So anyhow, think of AI, break your mindset of AI as a chatbot, just break that assumption completely. That's my first discussion.
It's a knowledge store, right? And a way to surface that knowledge that's there.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Number 2, and I think this is agents, and AI agents are the talk of 2025. If 2024 was about prompt engineering and everybody like, stop your superpower, go learn to prompt a chatbot because wow, huge shift this year. I jokingly say, and I'm going to say this tomorrow, prompt engineering is like so 2024.
Right.
Obviously, agents are all the rage for good reason. Agents are able to work in the background to capture insights and information and data and surface them to us at the right time. So I know at Narratize, we're creating everything from a stage gate readiness agent to a market intelligence agent to regulatory and standards agents. If you have product knowledge hubs set up for each of your developments, then these agents work in the background to surface regulatory changes that could have some kind of impact to that project. Right? The market intelligence agent is recognizing a competitor just launched a product that is exactly what we were planning to launch, or watch out for this patent, they may be playing in that space.
Right.
And so
Making that information much more visible than any of us would probably recognize with everything that's on our plate.
yes, we're trying so hard, but these processes here to date have been manual.
Right.
And no one has enough time to do it at that scale. At least I think every market intelligence person or every regulatory team member that I've ever met in my career says, I wish I had 48 hours in the day.
So here's an interesting analogy for you, because as we came to the hotel yesterday, I just saw this on local news, right? I don't know what it was. It wasn't even local, but nonetheless, it was some company out of California that's been putting high resolution cameras on cell phone towers and other places to be fire lookouts, right? And now I'm from Colorado. We have our forest fires there. We have fire lookout stations that are manned by humans, right? And they had one instance where their AI technology detected a fire 45 minutes before anyone called in to report this.
And that can be forest saving, right?
When it
Those
come-
minutes.
Right, exactly, right. Every minute is a big deal. Right.
Wow.
And or we're getting more and more AI tools that can do these things for us and like look at the competitors, look at the regulatory announcements, look at new technology that happen to be come out and get patented, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, even most R&D or product teams wish that they could have a better insight into the research happening in academia, and
Right.
it can't always be a priority. And so in Narratize, one of the agents enables you to search through peer-reviewed literature and white papers and reports coming out from trade associations, industry associations like PDMA, and to rapidly create evidence tables, literature reviews, and look at gaps and opportunities
Nice.
reports. These are the things that I think, the reasons I say step two, which is prompt engineering is so 2024, how might agents change your
Right.
ways of surfacing insights? Okay, number three is, wow, these sound very like young generation. I guess I'm trying to be silly. The third one is documentation or it didn't happen. So I know the young kids these days say pics or it didn't happen. That's an
Right.
Instagram thing. I don't even have Instagram. But documentation or it didn't happen. We talked earlier about we have teams who are spending way too much time manually on documentation. And the other extreme, I've met global Fortune 10 companies who say, we actually don't have any documentation of that period. And we laid off 200 people at that time. So we were just kind of really slammed and you just don't even have it.
Right.
Neither of those options is really going to enable you to keep competitively advantaged right now. So documentation or it didn't happen, and that means choosing AI platforms that are rated for their accuracy, that are tuned to the types of technical documentation that happens during product development, and really utilizing them within those 15-minute windows that you're not in meetings interacting with your colleagues, and make sure you choose ones that have human in the loop processes, that have review and approval processes built in, so that you're not getting into these honestly pretty bad habits that a lot of chatbots have put us into, which is, it's probably good, and ship it. That's the worst thing you can do professionally. And I've heard far too many stories of science, even credible folks just
Right.
using it without being careful.
Right.
So
The lawyer's making a brief, and there happens to be citing cases that aren't real.
yeah,
These things happen. And I use chatbots for things too.
sure.
This is my biggest fear, right? And
Yeah.
I try to be really careful, look through, and like, okay, I'm going to edit it and do all the work, but I want to make sure it's not saying something that's not accurate.
And I think as a builder of this technology and platforms in this space, I know a lot of other AI founders, and there's a lot of folks in the space who they're not really experts in the type of evidence that product teams live in, right? They're creating generic chatbots for everyday folks, and their goal is to get grandma, grandpa, neighbors, everybody to love this and use it every day to build grocery lists and vacation plans. Okay, so I'm going on a little bit of a rant, but ultimately, if we're not building in the same kinds of review triggers into the user experience of our application of this technology, we'll be far more likely to have folks with expert degrees like law degrees or like PhDs in product development or masters of engineering, MS, sorry, in engineering, fall into these traps. And so I think it's the responsibility too of the AI companies and the AI builders to make sure that we bring that expertise to the table. So anyway, rant over, I promise. But things in Narratize, like if you hit accept too quickly after content's generated, it said, did you read that?
Right.
Are you sure you read that? That's not going to happen in a platform necessarily where there's some folks building it that aren't thinking of that level of accuracy required. Okay, so that's number three, documentation or it didn't happen. Number four is a little more future looking, but I believe we're about to enter into an unprecedented era of product portfolio intelligence. So no longer just PPM, product portfolio management, the SVPs and councils and committees who are working to manage portfolio decisions, make the right calls. Should we build that product? Should we keep building this one? Or should we kill the project? Here to date, that space has been called portfolio management. If it could be managed, right, through all kinds of tools and frameworks and methodologies, we agree across industries are best practice ways to do it. Now, with this AI capability, I think we'll have an unprecedented era of product portfolio intelligence where even the SVPs and those committees are surfacing insights based on what they get visibility into for the first time. It surprises me. I guess one quick story, and then I promise I'll wrap it up because I'm apparently really chatty.
Tough.
I've met so many SVPs of product dev or R&D who say, the only time I really feel confident that I know what's going on with my portfolio is in once a quarter QBRs, where I sit and I listen to PowerPoint presentations all day long from every team, and then I can breathe easy at night. I think those days are very rapidly coming to a conclusion, because if your teams are actually sharing knowledge and working collaboratively, storing their documentation in platforms like this, they can use natural language to surface and queryable questions that they have, get answers, then SVPs can do that too. And they can look across every single hub and see at the portfolio level insights that just would take so much manual time to be a great leader. And Gemba walk your way too. I'm not saying Gemba walk should ever go away. It's just this level of, I could log in and ask, what's the total market value of my portfolio? I could ask, what were some of the top 10 lessons learned across every product team in last week's project status updates? And it's surfacing it. What a remarkable, exciting time to embrace this capability.
Yeah, and I think the SVPs listening to this too are thinking like, well, if it can do that, then we're just around the corner from it just sending me the text message that, hey, we have a resource allocation issue coming up here, and we're just going to start being much more proactive about problems coming up.
Definitely.
Be very helpful for management's goals.
Yeah, that's right.
Those are really good. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to talking more with you at the
too.
conference here about what's going on and how this all came about. We do like innovation quotes.
Oh, yeah.
And we
I brought
often
mine.
ask guests for an innovation quote and what that means to you and kind of the story behind it.
Okay. I love this part of the podcast, so I'm a little nervous because I wanted to get this right. And I was sharing with you before we hit record that I have talked to so many innovation leaders. So I do have sort of a stream of quotable quotes that I've kept in my innovation journal over the years. So this was really hard to choose one. But I actually chose one who I know this person, Joel Schall. He's the Director of Technology and Innovation at Henkel. I've known Joel for years. I met him through the Brilliant Failures project that I was talking about before. And here's what he said: if it's a truly disruptive innovation from a company, you can almost guarantee it wasn't a straight sort of A to B path that delivered the results. So as you recognize the success, recognize also the journey that got you there. And I love that. So I've kept that with me. We've already talked a little bit about learning rapidly, learning as fast as you can without spending a lot of money is the real goal. And I think what he was also digging deeper at there, we were sharing stories like of failure cake, when teams like bring a cake to work and they're like, you can't have a piece of cake until you tell me a time you failed. Trying to just break down the negative stigmas around failures. And I just love that he said, no matter if it's a success or a failure, recognize the journey, the insight and the learning is actually there, and the thing that needs to get passed on lives inside of that part of the journey.
Yeah, it's like the overnight success stories that we hear took years and years, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows the 3M Post-it note story, like what this amazing innovation, right? But it was 7 years from this mistake
know that.
happened in the lab. They were trying to make a really super strong industrial adhesive, and one of the prototypes, one of the versions, was this very weak glue, but it stayed sticky. It stayed sticky, like, And it took them 7 years to find a problem for that, right?
Yes, amazing.
It's not a straight line, right? Going from the original insight to how does that turn into something that actually creates value for customers that we can develop and commercialize?
And Chad, you just hit on the deeper thing, right? We've talked about knowledge sharing for the sake of onboarding faster to a project, or maybe reducing that onboarding period from 5 years, maybe down to 1 year. We've talked about that. Here's what we didn't talk about that's even more important, and you just hit on it. What about the technology that you remembered because you worked on it 20 years ago, but the timing wasn't right, or the technology wasn't developed enough, or the customer wasn't ready, or the market shifted in a weird way? What about those things? And I literally was on site at a global consumer packaged goods company, and their head of innovation opened up a filing cabinet, and he said, this is where that lives. It lives right here in this physical filing cabinet.
And who's going through this to in any way leverage any of that?
Now you can digitize that, you can parse it through AI metadata batching, and you can start to ask it questions. And then you can set up agents to say, here, Chad, you just pitched an idea for, I don't know, a floating water cup. That's a terrible idea, right? But we tried that 5 years ago here, or 20 years ago. Here's what worked or didn't work. So why don't you revise your pitch with that lesson learned in mind, so that when you go to your boss only 3 years into your job to pitch this again because you saw something shift in the market or the technology, it's actually informed by that history, and you won't be sort of a solo sounding like you didn't know what happened already.
I'm very intrigued. So I'm excited because I do want to be learning more about how these tools apply to product innovation, certainly. That's one of my goals from the conference this year, because I expect almost everyone will be talking about some aspect of AI, right? Yeah. But the larger knowledge management impacts are super exciting too. Yeah. How can organizations get more value out of what they've already learned and get that into the hands of all the employees that need that, and even proactively prompt for bad word, proactively give that information when needed to people too. So really exciting. Tell us, just for people that want to find out more about Narratize AI, what you're up to, you personally, where do we go? What should we know?
Of course, yes. So the company website's narratize.com. You can check out narratize.com. We also have a YouTube channel, Narratize AI. So of course,
what goes on the YouTube channel?
A lot of thought leadership content around these topics. And so myself, my team, and then we do interviews too with different folks. So if you're passionate about growing in your understanding of AI's outcomes and best practices for product dev, Narratize AI is an amazing YouTube channel. We just started it this year, so it's growing, but we've really appreciated the response so far. So narratize.com, and then I'm Katie Trauth Taylor. I post as much as I can on LinkedIn, and I love to connect with folks and hear your stories, hear how we could support you, and learn about priorities for your year, any challenges you're coming up against in applying these technologies. And so you can always find me on LinkedIn under Katie Trauth Taylor.
Fantastic. And in the written version of everything, we'll put the links out there as well to make that easy. So, Katie, thanks so much for joining. Nice to meet you at the conference here, and really excited to hear about what you're doing at the company.
Thank you. I'm so excited I finally got to be on the Product Mastery Now podcast.
I did not know you were a listener. That's very nice.
I've been a listener for a long time. Yes, thank you.
And for the listeners listening right now too, if you want to find the written version of everything we just discussed, simply go to productmasterynow.com/565. As always, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.